that apple is a very fresh fruit. It's delicious, but it's got a very short shelf life. If you leave it for a few days, it goes rotten. Whereas honey is the other way around. Honey is a preservative. It's got an endless shelf life, right? So when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we often like apples. We inspired. Let's be a better year. We make a resolution, but then, as you said, resolutions don't do very well sometimes. You are listening to the JP Show,
where we discuss the issues you care about from a Jewish perspective.
I am Rabbi G.
And I am Rabbi Levi.
And we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the JP Show. I'm Rabbi G, and I'm here with Rabbi Levi. Rabbi Levi, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel like the new year is upon us.
Absolutely. We're
Lots
10 days
happening. High season.
10 days away.
Yeah, it is. How are you feeling?
Excited. It's going to be a good experience, hopefully, and it's going to be a good year.
It's going to be an amazing year, please God. I think judging by the enthusiasm that's already there, all the stuff that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, been an amazing response.
Yeah.
I think people are into it, and yeah, it's going to be with tremendous energy. And please God, bring down the heavenly blessings.
Absolutely.
So what's on today?
So we're in the month of, as we've discussed already for the past few weeks, this is the time of preparing for the new year.
This is crunch time.
This is crunch time. And it's known as a time of tshuva, loosely translated as repentance, to return, also to change, to become better. From Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur is known as the 10 days of Teshuvah. Now we're in the preparation phase for that. So let's discuss change a little bit. People take on New Year resolutions, not only around January time, but as Jews, this is our new year. And this is when we should be taking on our New Year resolutions. Apparently, the statistics for New Year resolutions are not great.
No.
In terms of people sticking to them. So let's discuss that a little bit. So actually, before we discuss how to change properly, let's say I'm reflecting back last year, took on a resolution, and I stuck to it for 5 months, and now I'm pretty much back to where I started off last year. So was the whole year a waste of time? Was last year's experience not real? How do you actually measure change? I guess what I'm asking.
So, yeah, such a great question. I think obviously when you take a New Year's resolution, you want it to last all year, if possible. But in Judaism, it doesn't work like that. Everything good that we do is eternal. Everything good that we do is success. So if you took upon yourself something for the year, but then you did it for 5 months, 5 months is a long time, actually. That's pretty good. Every time you do it, it's amazing. It was one extra good thing. You produced an extra blessing into the world. You changed a little bit. You made a dent in your personality, whatever the case might be. So yeah, so our goal has to be obviously to try and take on sustainable and permanent resolutions. But that's an amazing success to be celebrated. Maybe this year you revisit the same resolution and hopefully do it for 7 months at least, or something like that, right? So yeah, no, but that's okay. And even if you didn't succeed at all, it's time to revisit it again and see what can we do better to make it work, right? Can I just throw in a little idea that I think I've shared with you before, but I came across this a few years ago, where another concept behind the apple and honey idea, right? That apple is a very fresh fruit. It's delicious, but it's got a very short shelf life. If you leave it for a few days, it goes rotten. Whereas honey is the other way around. Honey is a preservative. It's got an endless shelf life, right? So when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we often like apples. We inspired. Let's be a better year. We make a resolution, but then, as you said, resolutions don't do very well sometimes. So kind of dipping in the honey is like our way of saying, I'm very excited now, I'm very fresh now, I'm very enthusiastic about making a move and making a change within my own life and my own habits. But I want to try dip it in the honey. I want to try make sure it's preserved and it stays as long as we can.
Right. So as you said, the goal is obviously to properly change and should be sustainable. So how do you actually measure that? Let me sort of word the question this way. Let's say I, hypothetically speaking, had a problem that I wasn't treating a certain person properly because I don't particularly like them. right? Or let's say I harbor resentment towards them, whatever it is. And my New Year resolution last year was, you know what, this year I'm just going to be nice to them. But I never actually let go of the resentment. So actually, in my feelings, I'm exactly the same as I was a year ago. It's just that I have managed to somehow change my behavior. Is that a good enough change? Am I expected to also change my feelings as well? Is that even important? Who cares what I feel? How do you sort of measure all that? Look a
Wow.
little stumped there.
No, look, it's a fascinating discussion. So yeah, I mean, ideally, first of all, we're not supposed to harbor resentment. Resentment is not good for you.
Mm,
Number one. Number two, ultimately it'll come through. It's very difficult to sustainably be nice to a person forever that you can't stand. Um, right? Having said that, however, we place tremendous emphasis on action, and we know this concept that action changes feelings. So the real way to do it is no, actually, to start liking him better, but you don't. So there's great value in just acting better towards the person you did before. Because actually, first of all, it's always good. It's good to act, it's not called fake, it's just behaving like a mensch. But but actually it could change the way you feel towards him because when you give something to someone, you give them love, you give them kindness, you give them compassion, it actually could change the way you think about them.
mm, right. Okay, so let's get into actually changing. So someone has a bad habit, they've been doing something for 30 years. Let's say they waste a lot of time. They're, I don't know, on their phone too much. They get angry often. What's the best way about it to go and change? I mean, also like certain things are very sort of defined, right? Like, if you want to take a resolution, I'm going to put on tefillin every day this year. I'm going to give a coin to charity every day this year. In a way, that's easier. It's very measured. It's very defined. I mean, obviously, it's not easy if you haven't been doing it, but it's easier. How about it's like more of a general change? Like I want to get angry less often. I want to change a particular habit that I have. It's sort of a negative habit. How
By
do
the
you
way,
go?
even those the defined things need discussion because how do you hold on to that?
Yeah.
You might be very excited about being inspired. You might take on a new mitzvah, for example. You gave an example of putting on tefillin every weekday, but that might last for a while. And then, I mean, I know people that have told me that, like they got inspired, they
Yeah.
started doing it, and then they stopped. So
Mm,
the question, how do you do that, right? And then the less defined ones, like actually changing your personality, which is a little bit difficult, right? So I think it's right. First of all, it's not just about changing habits; it's also about adopting new habits. A person wants to adopt a new habit; they want to write a book, for example, or want to become an author. How do you do that? Like, or you want to learn an instrument. So there are actioned finite sort of habits, and then there are value judgments, habits, kind of thing. In other words, based on values. Those could be actions, and that could be do with relationships and personalities. Or I'll give you an example. Let's say someone loses their temper a lot, and it affects their relationships. Now, losing your temper is not a good thing. It's not effective, and it's not spiritually good for you, or in fact, even physically good for you. So a person say, I want to not become angry anymore. I want to stop being angry. That's not going to work. That's a big thing to, right? To to suddenly take upon yourself. I mean, how do you do that? Like just stop being angry? It's not going to work that. So, I do a Thursday morning personal growth lesson. So women always do it every Thursday morning. And right now, because it's Rosh Hashanah, so I'm doing, and sometimes I base it on a book. So I've been doing this particular series based on a famous book well, it's now famous, called Atomic Habits by James Clear,
mm,
and I thought it was really appropriate to use this book for before Rosh Hashanah because it really is about changing habits, and that's what this time of the year is all about. The only thing is, I mean, he doesn't obviously talk about Rosh Hashanah. He doesn't talk about spiritual habits. He just talks about, you want to become fit, or you want to lose weight, or you want to become a writer or a musician, whatever the case is. So, but the principles can be definitely borrowed across, and a lot of them are very, very powerful. So the first thing is, and this goes a little bit back to your question about resentment also. He gives a great analogy there, and I want to just tweak it a little bit to make it fit into the Jewish perspective. The first thing is he talks about identity. In other words, he talks about a very old-fashioned habit, which is like someone offers you a cigarette. Most people don't smoke. Most normal people try not to smoke nowadays. But obviously, going back 20, 30 years was very common, 40 years, whatever. Someone says to you, and you're trying to quit smoking, and someone says to you, "Hey, do you want a cigarette?" So you say, I'm trying to quit, right? The message behind that is, I'm a smoker, I'm just trying to quit.
mm.
The other person says, I don't smoke, meaning they did smoke, but now they don't smoke, right? It's, in other words, the one says, my identity is not that I'm a smoker trying to quit. I actually don't smoke. I'm identifying now as, I'm trying to build an identity of a non-smoker, right? And he says that's really, really important because the identity becomes the inspires then what am I going to do about it and what's going to be the outcome, and that's much more powerful. So the first thing is identity, and I thought that was really good because it really ties in a lot to what Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is all about. Rosh Hashanah, we know we blow the shofar, and we know this talks about this idea of crying out to Hashem as a child to a parent and so on and so forth. And we don't even talk about the plan. We don't talk about specific things in Rosh Hashanah. It's not like Yom Kippur. Right? We don't talk about specific transgressions and specific ideas. And I think because Rosh Hashanah is about the commitment, saying, I am someone who wants to become closer to God. I am someone that wants to be a better person. That's who I am, right?
Mhm.
And the only difference between what he says in the book and Rosh Hashanah is that we don't have to build the identity. We actually have that identity, right? We have a soul, and the soul is connected to God, whether we know it or don't know it. It's just not always so conscious. And that's who we really are. We really are good people. At the very core of our neshama, at the very core of our soul, we're actually good people. And Rosh Hashanah reveals that. So I wouldn't say it creates an identity, it reveals our identity. We tap into who we really are, which is even more powerful.
Yeah.
Once we do that, then we can start talking about building habits and what's the plan? What's the plan for me to build a sustainable, permanent resolution?
All
So
right. So
that's step one. Should
yeah,
we go to step two?
let's go to step two.
So, I mean, I'm not going to, yeah, I'll just pull out a few points. I think this is really important. First thing is to remember the danger of being very inspired is that we take on things that are not manageable.
Mm.
That's not from the book, that's just a fact of life. But what is a very big principle in the book is to take upon ourselves small steps, to do small things, right? Small things that sometimes aren't even that obvious. In other words, you don't even feel the change. When you keep doing something, it has a compound effect, and eventually you see a big, big shift, right?
Does he bring in that book? I mean, there's some sort of analogy from a plane. Does he bring in that book, or maybe it's from a different book?
A plane. Now, tell me the analogy.
Someone spoke of BINA last year and actually said this. I think she might have quoted this book that by a plane, if in the air the pilot makes a slight deviation to the flight plan, at the beginning it may just look like it just went a sort of deviated an inch, but eventually that deviation will become much, much more a major.
Yes, yes, that
So when
actually.
you make a slight change in your life, eventually it actually changes your whole direction.
Right. So we always think about it in the negative. Like if you take a wrong turn, even if it's not obvious, you'll
Yeah,
eventually get very lost.
yeah.
But in the positive, it's true. You make a small shift, something very small, but committed to it. Like you're going to do it, right? That's really the key. And it's a shift. And we are growing people, and every Rosh Hashanah we should grow. And we should take upon ourselves one or two or three little things, but it should be things that I think where I would just add, we do need to push ourselves a little bit sometimes, in other words, a little bit out of our comfort zone,
Yeah.
but something that we know we can manage, right?
Hmm.
Even going to even a mitzvah, like you said before, about putting on tefillin, and people have to assess themselves, and maybe they could jump into that, and that's beautiful. But if they can't, just maybe once a week, but like really once a week, like a commitment to once a week,
Hmm.
and then slowly, slowly twice a week, and then you build it up slowly, but just something. It might be even like we talked about not getting angry. If you say, let's say, now I'm not getting angry at my friend or my spouse, it's just not going to happen, right? But if you build a habit about, it might sound silly, but it's not silly. You build a habit like, Thursday afternoon for 2 hours, I'm dedicated to not losing my temper, right?
Yeah.
Now that's not the ultimate outcome, but you got to focus on the process. You got to focus on what you're doing now.
Hmm.
And they're going to set those 2 hours up for success, but you take something small and manageable. That's really the key. That's really the key. And then, of course, it's about taking that small slice and making sure that lasts until it becomes second nature. Then you can move on to the next small slice. And he has a whole thing in the book where he talks about you got to make it obvious, like you got to make it, reminders and let people remind you to do it. And you set a phone reminder, whatever the case is, right? Put signs around, put a thing on your diary, whatever the case is, make it very obvious. make it attractive, like set it up for success. That should be you should feel good about it. You should also celebrate all these different things. These are just, I mean, everyone can do it differently, but it's about setting yourself up so that little slice of a new habit can actually be something you really do. You know, maybe if it's the 2 hours you're not getting angry, maybe make sure that you prepare for that every Thursday, whatever the case is, that you don't come home hungry like that day because that's a trigger maybe for getting you upset or something. So you just set yourself up that those 2 days, it could be those 2 hours, it could be done.
If a person looks at themselves, and we all have things we have to fix, we're all very far from being perfect. And there's various areas of imperfections. Let's say, I don't know, let's take an example in any area in life. Let's say a person wants to be a better parent, right? So part of being a better parent is not exploding at your kids 5 times a day. And part of being a better parent is also taking a drive with your kids for once in a while and spending time with them. In other words, there's staying away from the negative and there's doing positive. And it's like that in every area of life, including our Judaism. What should we be focusing on? Should we be, or, if I have one area that I want to improve on, should I focus on doing more positive in that area, or should I focus on taking care of the negativity in that area?
Look, it's hard to say because I mean, first of all, sometimes it can come together. Like for example, you gave, if I'm getting annoyed at my kids, I can make a thing where once a week I'm going to spend an hour with them, but only once a week for the time being but I'm going to make it a really quality, nice, enjoyable hour, right?
Right.
So therefore, for that you have to do both. You have to not get angry during that hour, and you have to make it meaningful, right?
Yeah.
Spend quality time with them. But in general, I mean, positive. We jump into the positive. It's a very interesting discussion in lots of Jewish sources. Like, what do you aim for first? So on the one hand, every mitzvah we do, every positive thing we do is just creates a good energy, and sometimes it helps us then start staying away from negative. So sometimes that's the way to begin, but we shouldn't ignore the staying away from negative because there are bad habits that we have that we actually clearly need to stay away from, right? The Torah, as you know, is made up of negative commandments and positive commandments. Sometimes if a person wants to come closer, he wants to be more engaged in his Judaism, sometimes it is worth it just to start with the positive because it's a mitzvah, it's a positive, it's engaging, it's inspiring, and then that brings to other things. But one ultimately shouldn't ignore those things that we're not supposed to do and try and engage with them as well in terms of breaking inappropriate habits.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to add on this topic?
No, I think the main thing is this. We Judaism is tremendously has a tremendous emphasis on action, as we know, right? I think we've come to this time of the year, and I think particularly this year, where we really feel that we need to do something more because of the year that we've had in Israel and Am Yisrael and so on. I think it really is important to think about this. We have to come into the new year with something, but make it work. It's got to be successful. But we need to pick something that we could make a shift, manageable, set it up for success, come that identity, whatever the case is. But it should be something that we engage in, right? And when we talk about setting it up for success, I want to just say maybe the following, and that is, it doesn't mean it has to be a shift. It has to be something new, but then something small in that direction. What I mean by that is, if something is already doing something good, and let's say someone gives a lot of charity, and they say, you know what, I'm going to add $1,000 this year. Next coming year, I'm going to give extra. It's great, and it's always a mitzvah, and it's wonderful, and if that's what you could do, that's what you could do. But you're not adding a new habit. It's not real change. You're adding something that you already do well, just you're doing it more well. You know what I'm saying? I think we all have to take an area, whether it's in relationships, whether it's spirituality, whether it's mitzvah orientated, of something that we're not so used to, and say, you know what, I'm going to push myself a little bit. I'm going to adopt a habit in an area that's a little bit of a push for me, but I'm going to do it in a way that's successful. So those two things can come together. They're not exclusive. And let's try all of us. Let's try and make a little shift and everyone, as you said, everyone has an area of comfort zone that they need to move out of. There's no exceptions. None of us are perfect.
On that note, everyone have a wonderful week.
Yes, and wonderful preparation. This obviously needs to be thought about before Rosh Hashanah. We need to plan for this. So this is why we have this month.
That's right.
And we're in home stretch. So work on it. And we hopefully will meet next week again before Rosh Hashanah. So in the meantime, everyone should have a wonderful day.
See you, everyone.